I also want to talk to you a little bit about the mountaineering stuff, because you do spend a lot of time climbing hills.
Yeah.
In fact, I must confess, I had to laugh at the last one because you look absolutely knackered at the top of the hill. So it's not an easy thing to do, is it? But
No.
Tell us a little bit about these Munros that you go around and why you do it.
There's Munros, which are 3,000 feet or more higher. And there are Corbetts, which are 2,500 feet or more, and then there's also Grahams, which are 2,000 feet or more. And it's just basically a kind of challenge or an obsession or both. So I just like a challenge. I've climbed 200 Munros, and I decided to stop at 200 and focus on the Grahams and Corbetts just to give myself another challenge. And quite often when you're doing these hills, it really helps, if you want to just knock off a few of them, to camp. And I think that's where things get a little bit political, because in Scotland we're lucky that we have this kind of right to roam. We can camp almost anywhere as long as it's not someone's garden.
Well, that's right. We've been having this discussion about Dartmoor, with even the army saying, hang on a minute, we're using this for training. So we're not going to stop people being able to wild camp in Dartmoor. But that's a general right in Scotland. And I think people have fought for that right. But I visited Costa Rica in 2015, and it was actually because of one of my relatives was at college there and graduating. And at the time, I was pretty broke, but I scraped up the money to travel there, and I did have a lovely time, but I found there were so many places that were closed to me. And you always, Costa Rica is really presented as this wonderful kind of natural place, lots of national parks. But in fact, the national parks there are used really to keep people, not so much to keep people out, but to keep people paying. There's a kind of fee for getting into each one. So in Scotland, you could go and climb Ben Lomond or Ben Nevis, as long as you can get there and then you can climb it. No one's going to stop you. But in Costa Rica, if you want to go and climb a particular mountain, you've got to pay whatever it is, maybe $15. But I do remember that my sister was there. Her two kids wanted to go on this long zip slide. It was $75 each. And we weren't even allowed to go and watch them. We had to sit in a cafe because I think they wanted to charge for expensive photos. So this is a kind of thing that I think this Dartmoor thing could be leading to. Isn't it difficult to enforce that? The idea is if you're wandering on a hill and you go, how are they going to actually come and, are they going to come and find you with a helicopter and a drone and charge you on the spot? Or, to me, this is just, it's a bit like our clean air zone here, that it's just a toll. The idea is the access to the natural environment, should of course be free. This is a free gift to mankind. Ladies and gentlemen, why should anybody
we were
have to
born
pay?
on this planet. That's why I think it's one of the fundamental rights of human rights. We were born on this planet. We should be allowed to sleep on it.
Yeah, but you're painting a bit of a rosy picture of Scotland, because I know I've had friends who've been trying to squat in Scotland. So it's okay, you can camp out overnight and you can walk pretty much where you want. But when it comes to actually finding somewhere permanent, you get immediate police action, very much like actually the residential squatting here in the UK does in Scotland. But I wanted to talk, because I had a very interesting experience up in Scotland doing some walking too. I'd just like to take you through this, because a relationship I had with this guy, Nick Land, who wrote this essay, The Dark Enlightenment. As I was at Bilderberg, I was thinking it through, because there's so much in front of me to do with these various, particularly with artificial intelligence and the various different crises. And now apparently we've got another crisis, the AI crisis. We're going to become extinct because AI is going to wipe us all out if we're not careful. This is accelerationism, and this is his idea, basically. It seems to be this old school friend of mine's idea. I first came across this when I was interviewing last year David Livingstone about his book Transhumanism, The History of a Dangerous Idea, and he mentioned this guy Nick Land. And at the end of the interview I said to him, David, who is this guy? Can you tell me a bit about him? And I said, I know him. I went to school with him. I was good friends with him. Nick the Nazi was his nickname. From between 1976 and 1976 and 1978. I was in the Air Cadets with him from 1975 roughly. Spent most Saturdays around his house playing war games, and it's a bit peculiar. And then he suddenly in 1978 he suddenly became a communist. He didn't want to speak to me anymore. I don't know. It wasn't just because he was a communist. We went on holiday. I should post up one of the photographs from the holiday, because we came down here to Wells just before we got our O-level results. And so he became a communist in 1978, and I grabbed him in school, in the sixth form college one day, and I said to him, Nick, this whole thing about God, right, we've been talking about this, and this is the sort of thing that kids talk about at school. Is there such a thing as a God? I said, I'm interested in what you say, because you said a lot about the Nazis, etc. What about God? He said, well, pause for a minute. He said, well, I think it's about 50-50, whether there's a God or not. I'm thinking, that's an interesting answer from Nick the Nazi. So anyway, he wasn't a Nazi at that point anymore. He was a communist, and he went off to Warwick University after studying at Sussex University when I went to see him. But that had a big effect on me. And when I was getting my A-level results, I was down Lambs Road, where we lived in Kent, Hayes in Kent, where the school was. And just before I opened my A-level results, I was sitting there thinking, gosh, this is an important moment. You know, when is it going to be rubbish, or is it going to be, am I going to go to the university or college I want to go to? And I said a prayer. I said, God, if you're out there, tell me who, show me that you're out there. Just a quick prayer before I opened it. But I thought quite carefully about it, because I think my own idea is, look, if you don't get this right at that age, you're going to spend the rest of your life just bumbling around, and you may have got it all wrong. So that was a little prayer I said at aged 18. And then within a few months, I found myself in Scotland walking, and up in the Cairngorms. And it was probably September the same year, because I've just been putting this together in my mind. And a few months later, up in the Cairngorms, the weather came down, and I'm sitting there shivering on a rock, completely lost. Slowly but surely, my map is melting because the rain is dissolving my map, and I'm thinking, oh God, I really didn't want this, and I'm starting to shiver, getting a bit hypothermic. And I said, well, God, I'm sorry, I don't want to die. If you're out there, help me. And after about 15 minutes, the clouds parted, and I saw this little bothy, and I went for the bothy, and nothing could stop me getting to it. After about an hour, I reached it, and I was all right. But without that bothy, I wouldn't be sitting here now. Mm-hmm. So and without God, because this was I think a very special moment for me. And I wonder how many youngsters at that age think that same sort of question. Mm-hmm. It's not really a fair thing to ask you.
No, but I think it's a really important issue, because there's something about mountains. Maybe this is why I love them so much. I had quite a spiritual experience on a mountain, which I won't go into just now, but it was back, in the 90s. And I wasn't really in trouble, but it was very spiritual, and I think there is something about those high places that they intensify the life experience, certainly, and also there's definitely something spiritual, even just in people's reaction to the nature around them. It's very special.
Bilderberg means, apparently in Dutch, picture mountain.
Oh.
So they obviously like being up the top there. And obviously Davos also happens at the top of the mountain. That's largely to keep away the protesters, because it's so cold with the ice and the snow. But, I think also we really do need to connect with our natural environment. Totally. And it's so important, because our cities nowadays are becoming almost like everywhere you step, you've got to pay this, you've got to pay that. There's amazingly, when we were over in Portugal, everywhere there's free water. Here in the UK, what happened to that? Well, if the local authority can't provide free water, what on earth is it up to? What's the point?
And that's another thing about Costa Rica, the number of people that seem to be crammed into San Jose, the capital city. It's as if they've got all the people in the city, and then the wealthy people and the honeymoon visitors can enjoy the nature. And I think nature should be for all. I feel that really strongly. In fact, you were talking about how would they manage to cordon it off and stop people getting in. Well, there's a really interesting article that I read written by, who's the writer? McLeish? I can't remember his name now. Cameron McNeish. And it was from 2013. But this is an issue because the Allerdale estate, it has one Corbett, but I've noticed from people's photographs, friends' photographs, they have all these wonderful signs saying protected area because of nature and rewilding, and they seem to be giving the impression that it's all about the animals. And it's actually being kind of an ongoing battle with the owner, who's Paul Lister, and he's the MFI heir. And he wants to introduce wolves and bears and lynx and boar and bison. And apparently Cameron McNeish was invited along to this meeting where they were showed around the estate. And then the subject of this electrified fence came up. And apparently that's how he wants to protect the outside world, well, his kind of nature from the outside world, by building an electrified fence. And it's 50,000, I think he owns 23,000 acres, but other people have sort of joined in, so it's a total of 50,000 acres that would be electrified so that people couldn't.
I'll tell you a little story about this, because I was up at the Reforesting Scotland conference, must have been about 1998, and this issue of rewilding came up there. And there was a English guy, who was at the conference giving a little talk about this. And just as soon as he stopped and started asking the questions, a great big, tall, dark-haired fella from Knoydart stood up, which is this, it's not actually an island, but it's a pretty isolated community on the west of Scotland, stood up and he said, you're really telling us that we're not allowed to walk in our own country, English boy.
Exactly.
And
well
so
said.
what's been happening, and he got I don't know, whatever it was, Idiot of the Conference Award or something, because it just went down like a lead balloon at the Reforesting Scotland. So there is also this idea that if you're putting these dangerous animals in, there was a reason why they were killed off, because they're dangerous, and even foxes will take a small baby if your French windows are open.
Yeah, people used to have drawers to protect their babies from the fox. Well, maybe not foxes, wolves in those days. Yeah,
wolves are a little bit more hard to handle.
Yeah,
quite better organised.
I
than
actually
foxes.
think I can kind of understand the thinking behind rewilding, but I think if it happened to the extent of bears, then there would be a rearming to go along with it. Because in the States where they have bears, they also have guns.
Yeah, and also the Hermann Goering was quite into all this stuff. He wanted to bring back all these old species into Nazi Germany, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. Anyway, talking of Germany, this whole subject did come up on Al Jazeera the other week, where they're now talking, the German farmers are now saying, and of course the idea is, if you've got dangerous animals, people can't go for a walk there. It's just a way of, almost like guard dogs, effectively, is that this is the way that many of the livestock farmers over in Germany right now are feeling, Natalie, is that do we really want to have these wolves taking our livestock? Because apparently they're not allowed to shoot them unless they can prove that wolf has actually taken several livestock. They have to just stand there and watch the wolves hunting the lambs and the sheep, etc. Which fits, I suppose, into this wider agenda about trying to get rid of livestock. We've seen this week, National Rivers Authority, they don't exist anymore. It's the Environment Agency and certain campaign groups, obviously foundation-funded campaign groups, saying that the livestock farmers around the River Wye in Wales must stop breeding livestock because that livestock's runoff is going into the rivers. Well, it's always done that. And if you've got a proper Environment Agency, they make sure it doesn't happen. Anyway, let's go back over to Al Jazeera a couple of weeks ago, looking at what is going on in Germany with these marvellous rewilded wolves eating the farmers' sheep.
Grazing freely is becoming a rare sight in Germany. Shepherds tasked with maintaining grassland are keeping their herds behind electric fences equipped with cameras to protect them from a new enemy. Hey! This farmer filmed a wolf attack in broad daylight. With the help of guard dogs, her sheep narrowly escaped. Verena Janke has been less lucky. In recent years, she's lost around 150 sheep to wolves.
We're fighting a battle we can't win. They want us to do more to protect our sheep, but it's impossible. We love our job. We work 7 days a week. I grew up with this. It's very difficult to see how everything has changed.
Conservationists see the return of the wolf as a success story. Around 2,000 of the endangered animals have been counted in Germany since the first packs were sighted again at the beginning of the century.
For many decades, wolves were merely characters in German fairy tales, but increasingly they have become a scary reality for these sheep and other farm animals, so much that it has led to a confrontation between farmers and conservationists, a conflict that is increasingly turned emotional.
Employees at one environmental organization received a grim warning when a severed head was dumped at their office in April. It's unclear who's responsible.
It shows how desperate some of them are, but it also shows that they are not interested in normal conversation, in normal ways to find solutions.
Christiane agrees that under certain circumstances wolves can be shot, especially if they are known to attack sheep regularly. But some politicians want to go further. This is what the Bavarian leader said on German TV.
I want to make this very clear. Wolves have no place here.
He says the future of farming is at stake if wolves are not culled. The European Parliament recently adopted a resolution to downgrade the wolf's protection status to help farmers. But EU environment ministers say the bloc should do more to protect the animals. Hunters in Germany are urging politicians to make a decision before people start taking the law into their own hands. They are also concerned that humans could be next.
Wolves are smart creatures. Over centuries they went through natural selection based on their intelligence. That makes it difficult to protect cattle against them, but on the other hand their intelligence means they understand that if we kill one member of the pack, they will quickly learn their lesson.
It's only one of the possible solutions to maintaining a balance between humans and wildlife, a balance that's currently under threat. Stab Vassen, Al Jazeera, in Lower Saxony.
Yeah, so obviously the farmers over in Germany having a bit of a hard time there with these wolves taking their sheep. What do you think, Natalie? Something seems to be going on here where, I mean, making a connection with the Nazis might be a bit unfair because obviously we do want to protect our wildlife, but we don't really want wildlife that's going to be biting the heads off lambs and attacking people or humans.
Yeah, it's almost as if wildlife has a potential to be weaponized. It seems, I don't know, so many people love the idea of wolves and even bears coming. I mean, people go to Alaska and they want to see the bears, you know, they're, you know, part of nature.
Rebecca Wrigley is the name of the woman who's in charge of this Rewilding Britain campaign. She is the partner of George Monbiot, who's been writing in The Guardian. I mean, it's very little actually connecting the two, and it's almost as if they're slightly embarrassed about the fact that they're married or together, living down in Totnes now. But very strange. And then there he is saying how we've got to get rid of livestock in The Guardian. Yeah. So there's something a little bit peculiar going on here. It seems to me they're not being quite open and honest about what their agenda is.
Because he did that film about, was it 10 years ago or so, and it keeps coming up and again. People keep sharing it every now and then on social media, showing how, was it Yellowstone Park apparently was regenerated by bringing in predators for the local, I can't remember, we've got deer that running wild here, but
so are they going to bring back the Tyrannosaurus Rex? Is that thought to be, you know, if they can find an egg or something and make a new one of those up, will they let those wander around?
It's a very controversial subject, and I can see why some people say, okay, we've got a deer running wild in Scotland and destroying all the trees. But I think it's not something that you just want to suddenly bring in. I mean, what about the things they've done in the past with the I was going to say stoats, the mink that was brought in the 40s and
Grey
got
squirrels.
rid of the water vole. Yeah.